Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to my channel, and happy Thanksgiving Day weekend. Depending when you're listening to this video, it is Thanksgiving night for me, and I wanted to post something I'm thankful for in comics. I'm thankful for a lot right now, actually, with DC's Rebirth initiative, and it's been so great. I've talked about it before, just to have my Superman back, and it was a long, dark time there with that New 52 run, and they really brought back the real deal Superman. Not a change, they literally wiped out that New 52 Superman and brought back the original continuity guy, so that's just been wonderful. But I've talked about that a lot. Today I'd actually like to talk about a different character, one that I relate to quite a bit, actually, and that's Tim Drake, who was the third Robin. Right now they're calling him Red Robin. We'll talk about that. He was brought back in a familiar way to how he had previously appeared in comics. I'll talk about that again in a second as well. Had his original costume on, and everybody was excited. So first of all, let me just talk about what the character has meant to me and why I'm so excited about him in particular. He was really my first Robin in the comic books. I mean, I'd always known about Dick Grayson, of course, watching the old Batman show or, reading older Batman comics or whatever. Of course, we knew Dick Grayson was Robin, but when I started reading Batman comics as they were coming out back in the day, I followed the whole saga of Tim Drake, and just the whole premise of his character coming in resonated with me so much. It was so brilliant, and it continues to do so now. I recently did a interview for my book, Heroic Inspirations, on the Heroic World website run by my friend Scott Cranford. And we're both big Superman fans, and he was asking me a bunch of different questions about the book. And one of the questions he asked was, which superhero do you relate to the most? Probably thinking I would say Superman, and I wanted to mention Superman, of course. So I said, well, let me first answer that by telling you who I aspire to the most. And I spoke about Superman there, and I said, now, as to who I relate to the most, it would definitely be Tim Drake. Tim Drake's Robin came about at a time when Batman was becoming far too dark. And Batman's always had difficulty sort of maintaining that balance throughout his career. Writers tend to push him a little farther one way or the other. And ever since the 66 series, people are constantly trying to push him darker. And that's still happened, ever since. But Jason Todd was the second Robin and was beaten to death by the Joker. There was a whole ordeal. Jason Todd became Robin, and just the character sort of took on a life of its own and became kind of bratty and was annoying readers quite a bit, actually. And they did a whole ordeal where they were letting the readers vote. They had this event set up, and they had the Joker kidnapping him and beating him, and they said the readers could decide if he lived or died, and they could call in these votes, and the readers actually voted that he died. So it was a big deal. It was a big event, The Lonely Place of Dying. It's a beautiful story arc, and obviously had a large effect on Batman. He didn't want to, just go out and replace him or whatever. He obviously felt at fault and to blame for the murder. So he became a little more closed off and became a lot darker of a character. Still not dark as, Zack Snyder tried to make him, going around killing and torturing. He still had his standards and everything, but just too dark. You didn't see a lot of the bright light. And that's the thing about Batman. There's a wonderful page from a Carl Kessel story in which Superman and Batman team up once a year. And there's a moment where Superman is meeting Batgirl for the first time. And he says to her, you seem so bright and happy. I'm surprised that you chose Batman to emulate because he's a little dark. And Batgirl said, he's not dark at all. He shows us the light. He's the one shining in the darkness. He seems a little dark because he's in the darkness, but he's the one showing us the way out. And that's what's so great about him. And yes, absolutely, that is the balance. That's who Batman is supposed to be. Well, Tim Drake is a character who saw this and believed this about Batman, that Batman should be that wonderful balance. And he saw, in the universe there, he saw that Batman was becoming too dark. Tim Drake was just a young boy, but he already figured out, because of his own brilliant detective skills, and I won't go into all of the hows and whatever. It was a very convincing and believable story is how he figured out that Batman was Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson was Robin. It was a very cool way he did that. And he decided that Batman needed a Robin. That was his belief. So he wanted to bring Dick Grayson back to Robin. Dick Grayson was off being Nightwing at the time, so he hunted down Dick Grayson, and he was trying to get him to go back and be Robin again with Batman, because Batman needed a Robin to lighten him up and to really make him the hero he was meant to be. And I won't go into the whole story, but it ended up, of course, Dick Grayson wanted to remain Nightwing, and this and that happened. And eventually a moment happened where Tim Drake had to put the Robin costume on himself to go save them at some point. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful story arc. And that's eventually how Tim Drake became Robin. That was actually also the first time the Robin costume was updated to have the full pants and everything. And I just thought that was so cool growing up. You know, those the black tabby boots and the red and the green. That was just such a cool look and everything like that. So I loved the character for a long time throughout that. New 52 happened in 2011. And New 52 just, oh man, that whole event in DC just really crapped on a lot of their characters. But Tim Drake is among the characters who had it worst off. I mean, he was really just decimated more than many other characters were. They eliminated the idea that he'd ever been Robin. He was just supposed to be Red Robin now, like another character he decided to be. It was really silly. And all of this really is because the character of Damian Wayne, Batman's son, they just doubled down on that idea and kept him around. Even Grant Morrison, who created Damian Wayne, had planned on killing the character off. He's incredibly annoying. I just nails on a chalkboard every time he's on a page with anybody. I can't stand his bratty little character. But for whatever reason, he's still around and people do like him. He has a huge following, so be it. But he became Robin, of course. So then what was there for Tim Drake? And they just sort of signed him off. They shipped him off to go be with the Teen Titans. They completely changed his costume. It was really ridiculous and unrecognizable. He's wearing these like Vegas showgirl feathers or whatever. It was just bizarre. And they just really hurt his character. I mean, to make somebody so crucial to Batman's history like that, never to have even been Robin, is just pretty silly. And it was really exciting when they announced the Rebirth initiative, and that Detective Comics, which I've been talking about over my videos for this past year, is an amazing run. I know the spotlight right now is kind of on the Batman run, with Batman proposing to Catwoman and that romance finally really happening and culminating. And that's a cool idea, but Detective Comics has been 100% better written since the beginning. James Tynion or Timvin, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, the fourth, has been the writer from the beginning, and he's just been knocking it out of the park. I've heard people say, well, you know, because the Detective Comics does deal with the Batman family, really. All of Batman's allies in Gotham City that he's gotten together, organized, and working together. And some people say, well, I just feel like that's, you know, Gotham's too crowded in that way. I like my Batman stories. I get that. I do. But the way the Rebirth is structured this is that you're not just supposed to read Detective Comics and that's your only dose of Batman. So now you see all these other characters around him all the time. No, Detective Comics is supposed to be your window into the universe where he has allies. Because Batman should have allies. A loner as he is, he should have a Robin. He should have some other characters that he relies on from time to time. So Detective Comics is the specific avenue to find out about their goings-on. And it's been my favorite Batman title, absolutely. Just so many cool characters coming together, and the writer's been able to explore each of their own little story arcs, and everybody's believable and has their own growth. It's been really great. But shortly into the Detective run, everybody was excited because they brought back Tim Drake's original costume. He's still called Red Robin, so there are 2 R's on his chest, which is, just bothers me a little bit, but still, at least I have him back. But, this original costume with the red and green and the long pants and everything and the short sleeves, I just love it. It's perfect. And they brought him back, was excited, but a few issues in, really, he dies. He sacrifices himself to save everybody else. Now, he doesn't really die. You think he does for a second, and then it's revealed that Mr. Oz, or possibly Dr. Manhattan, at this point, we don't really know who or which one, had removed him from the scene there at the last moment because people loved him too much and he was too hopeful or whatever. So you get this idea that he's tied into the story, the whole overreaching arc of Rebirth, and how the New 52 was people sucking out the light and the hope of the DC universe. Probably Dr. Manhattan. Currently, we're in the Doomsday Clock run right now, so hopefully this will answer some of these questions for us. And he was part of that, which I thought was so great, because absolutely, that's what I love about the DC universe, that hope and that wonderful light and everything. And Superman, of course, a huge part of that, but Tim Drake is another huge part of that as well. And people really did latch onto his character for recognizing that Batman needed that light, and for recognizing that Batman and the DC universe at large needed that balance. That was such a cool idea. So somebody fighting against the light and hope in the DC universe, it makes sense they'd want to remove Tim Drake. Well, he recently has escaped, and he's back with the team now, and that's just so wonderful. And I'm just so happy to have him back. I hope things continue to go well. I'm so glad that we've got more story arcs with him. He's even remembered Connor Kent, which is wonderful. Well, he's starting-ish to remember Connor Kent, which is really wonderful. That's one thing that has been missing. The Superman Reborn event was brilliant, and that's the thing that really solidly, finally retconned all of the New 52 Superman and just brought our real deal original continuity Clark Kent back into the picture. And the only thing that they didn't bring back in was Connor Kent, who was his clone, who was the Superboy from the pre-New 52 days that had been so popular. And he formed a very close friendship with Tim Drake's Robin and the Young Justice and Teen Titans that they were a part of. And he was kind of a glaring hole in the DC universe still. He was very much missing, and we were wondering, why didn't they bring him back? And they've mentioning his name now in the run where Tim Drake is coming back and fighting his way away from the prison that he was kept in there. So he's starting to come back possibly. That would be great. I know the first issue of Superman Doomsday Clock was showing the Kents being killed again, as Clark is a young boy. Of course, that is a New 52 thing too. In the pre-New 52 universe, the Kents were still alive, and Clark would still go to them for advice and help. So I'm hoping that even that gets fixed with this Doomsday Clock thing and the whole silly changes that Dr. Manhattan is supposedly have made to the DC universe. So just looks like so many things are coming back to the way they should have been. And it's not just a nostalgic old man thing like, I like the comics like they were when I was, it's not that. It's that certain standards and certain rules, certain things were broken that really held the universe together. Of course, things are going to change, generation to generation, and comics evolve and such like that, but the characters themselves shouldn't betray who they are, and the universe shouldn't betray what it is. And that had happened in a number of different ways with that enforced change of the New 52, and they're really doing a wonderful job of fixing that now. So excited to have my Tim Drake back. He's somebody that I relate to in terms of looking at the world and where it needs to have some balance, and there needs to be light there as well, and tries to bring that balance. And that's great. If I can aspire to Superman, I'll never be like Superman, but I can aspire to it. But Tim Drake is somebody that, at least in character, I can have a little more of a chance to be like. So I'm really happy to have that character back. I'd love to know for you, though, this is the Thanksgiving Day weekend. What characters right now in comic books are you thankful to have around? Maybe it's somebody that had been gone for a while and the writers are recently brought back. Or maybe it's a film character, or on one of the TV shows, perhaps the CW shows, or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., or anything like that. I'd love to know a character or two that you're just thankful to have around because they mean a lot to you and they inspire you in different ways. Would love to know that from you. And I will be back at some point this weekend. It is a holiday weekend, but I never like to leave the channel lonely for too long, so I will be back. Thanks as always for listening. Until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the superhero stories you love. Thanks for watching.